Good morning, YouTube. Like, subscribe, and share, please. All right, I want to talk about a timeline here. You guys have heard of it before. It's all in the timing. Sometimes things are all in the timing. All right, if you can lay out a timeline of something, and this one's real. This is a real simple thing here. What I'm about to say. This is nothing complex, or you even have to think about. Really, it is what it is. But it's all in the timing, and this has to do with GYPSY Rose Blanchard's all her little medical ailments that she had, right? And her microdeletion. Okay. And here's what I mean by it's all in the timing. All right. Um, Dee Dee found out, well, I guess Gypsy too, that she had the microdeletion in 2011. Now, Fancy Miss Ellie's the one that sent me the date. It's either March 2nd or January 2nd, something like that. But it's 2011. Okay. And that's what's important because she was 19 years old, right? 2015 is 4 years later. She was arrested, right? She was 19 years old. Okay. An adult, really. They find out she's got the microdeletion. Well, there's the answers to all this shit I went through when she was a child. Now, I've also read, you guys got to get some books, though, with the microdeletion, okay? Some real books. You can't do everything online, guys. You can't trust all that shit, man. There are people can go in there and alter, and they from their company can go in and change it and alter it. I know they should be doing that to medical things and stuff, but they will. They don't care, man. They don't care anymore. Anything so the people will think the way they want them to think about everything. But get you some books, all right? A lot of these things with the microdeletion, the little ailments, they can grow out of. Just like some kids grow out of asthma and childhood bronchitis. There's lots of things kids grow out of as adults sometimes, right? And this is true with this too. Now, of course, things that are set there, that are set, like the strabismus, that lazy eye. Well, of course, you're not going to grow out of that. It's either they can correct it or they can't. I guess they've tried a couple times. They can't correct it, right? Her microcephaly, she's going to always have a small head. It's not going to be all of a sudden, oh, she's an adult, so my head's going to grow bigger now. You know what I mean? She's going to always be 4'11". Short stature, small stature is part of it, okay? But the little things like the little muscle weakness she had, and maybe some of the urinary problems, some of the swallowing problems, all of those things, it looks like, she says she's in perfect health. And it looks like that when they first toted her off to jail, she come walking in that courtroom. She looked pretty healthy to me. Then we see her on the stand testifying for Nicholas Godejohn. She had long, beautiful hair, and she looked very healthy. Her skin and everything. Look at her. That tells a lot, guys. Your hair, nail, skin, and stuff, those are accessory type things. Okay? When they don't look good unless the rest of your body systems are being taken care of. They're accessory organs. They get attention last. If your nails and hair are in good shape and grow all the time and everything, you're probably in decent shape otherwise overall. Okay? So that tells me she ain't got shit wrong with her. She marched right in that courtroom, this and that. Okay? This is what I'm talking about the timeline, though, guys. As a small child, now think about it, Dee Dee, who doesn't have a dad in this situation, deadbeat dad, because Christy is a control nut bitch and wanted no one. That's their new family. No. She might have been fake with Gypsy here and there, but no, this is your new family now. She's one of those, okay? And Rod is a very weak man. Hence the reason she surrounds herself, Gypsy, with nothing but weak men. Okay? All right, so she's got this kid who's having problems swallowing, whose eyes are doing these things, who's not growing right, whose muscles are weak, I don't know, I wasn't there, all the things. But we see all the things she complained of. The kid was wearing a diaper. The kid had to have a feeding tube swallowed. Doctors don't just do that. Okay? Now, there are some real Munchausen mothers that can talk some doctors into some wild shit just from their history. She was more exaggerating things, not making up whole ailments. Like some of the real Munchausen mothers inject things. They'll take in the corner of the bathroom and pick up all the hair and the gross shit, and they'll suck it up into a syringe and inject it in their kids so they get fucking a high fever and get sick. They do actual things to their child. Okay, the real ones. She wasn't doing things to, well, as far as I know, she was identifying these issues with her kid, and she's running around to all these places or whatever, trying to figure out what's going on. What is going on? So they did all these tests, okay? And then we find out later, after all of this, way later, she's an adult at 19, we find out, oh, well, it's a microdeletion. And if you do more than just a Google search, you guys have to stop. This is what they set us up for. Everyone just go to Google. They made it a verb. Google it. That was supposed to just be a software search engine. Now it's the arbiter of truth. And that's exactly what they want to do. You better read 1984 again. This is how they will control history. This is how they will control our information, guys. Run to AI. Run to Google. They know the truth. It's not always the truth there, guys. I can Google something or an AI search on my shit and go to someone else's device that is totally into different things, and they will get a different response. This is what they're doing to us. That's why I don't fuck with AI. You shouldn't fuck with AI or ChatGPT. It's evil, and they're just catching you up in some bullshit, guys, with that. They did not do that to do us a favor, make things easier for us, okay? They did that for a very nefarious reason with this AI and this Google shit. You can't run to Google for everything. Say, oh, there it is, and then you screenshot it. There it is, Google says. No, you can't do that. Get you some books, and you will find out all this shit, the salivary glands, the feeding tube, the diaper, the strabismus, the small stature, the small head, the muscle weakness, it goes right down a row in a fucking textbook. It goes through every body system and tells you things that can happen with that. And this poor little single mother who's not real educated, doesn't come from, she's got no one helping her but her family who are, and I'm not trying to be mean, man, but they're a bunch of hicks from the bayou that they're not worldly. They don't know any of this shit either. None of them are educated or anything. Okay, they're running around. What is wrong with my kid, man? And again, piece of shit dad's not helping at all. He doesn't care. He's off impregnating everyone he can get his mitts on. He had, did he have 2 or 3 people pregnant at one time or some shit? Who knows how many kids, who knows how many half brothers and sisters Gypsy's got we don't even fucking know about. But that's none of my business. So what I'm saying, guys, is when you've got a young mother several years before running around doing all these testings, trying to figure out what's going on, and then down the line you figure out the one diagnosis that answers all of it, right in a fancy little row. Okay? That exonerates Dee Dee. Okay? If the timeline was switched and she found out that she had microdeletion when she was a baby, and then the following year she starts doing all these testing right down in a row that match what it says in Google, that match what it says in textbooks, then we would need to look at her as possibly a Munchausen motherfucker. Of course, once they're dead, even if that were true, you still can't diagnose someone with that post-mortem. That's ridiculous. You don't even hint at that. Okay? That is a very complex, fucked up thing. All right? All right. So that tells you, no, it's the opposite. It's a young mother trying to figure out what the hell's going on with her kid, and then they discover it later. If the opposite were true, then that would be that. Okay? So that puts her off the hook right there, in my opinion, as far as any kind of medical abuse or any bullshit like that. Now, secondly, it does something else, though. Mike Stanfield's first was going to be this abuse narrative that a battered spouse, that Nicholas Godejohn, little Nick, from these little messages back and forth and everything, they were going to spin it that it was a battered spouse, and she was scared to death of Nick, and that's why she had to get rid of her mother, and he just had to get my mother out of the way, and he's controlling me and beating me and hurting me and raping me. He raped me. This was the first what they were going to try. Well, they knew that wasn't going to work after the police interviews when they saw that that goddamn Stevie Wonder could see that she's the evil motherfucker and he's the weak, meek, mild man that she took advantage of it. Anyone can see that. So they couldn't go with that. So then they have all her medical records at this point, right? They also have to turn over their medical records to the state if they plan on using them, right? And not only using them, she wasn't going to trial, but that's part of the plea. Oh, so medical, you know that. It was all fake. They knew the dates. They knew when all the testing went on. They had complete medical records. And you know what? Mike Stanfield might look like a big fucking oaf, but he is still an attorney. And I'm not trying to say any kind of way, but you can't be a fucking total idiot and make it through law school. In fact, you can't really be a total fucking idiot and even get into law school. Okay? All right? I'm just telling you the truth. You have to have a bachelor's degree with some decent grades, and then you have to take an LSAT test, which is all about reasoning and logic and shit. A fucking idiot is not going to score high enough to get into any law school. Okay? So he may look like a big fucking oof, but he's not. And he knew good and goddamn well, him and his paralegal, that those medical records said the opposite of that. But since they couldn't go with the abuse narrative, the battered spouse, which is so ridiculous, not only were they not married, they weren't living together. How are they going to form a battered spouse thing over Facebook? So that wasn't going to work. So, the paralegal is the one that was looking through all the medical records. He or she, I think it's a she. She is the one, I believe it's a she, that came up with this shit. She floated it. I think it's a she. I hope it's a she. Whoever, they floated it. And then they ran with it. Knowing good and goddamn well. My point about Mike is he knows about reasoning, logic, and how timelines work. He saw that. He saw that she did all that testing, and then they found out what a microdeletion was. And you know he had his paralegal look up, what the fuck is a microdeletion? And they got all the information out. That's what their jobs are. Paralegals' jobs are to research, get case studies that match their shit, research other things, and help them put together briefs and motions. That's what they do. And talk to new clients and get the initial information and shit like that. That's what they do. Okay? So they knew good and damn well. That means the state knew. That means Nick's attorney knew. Everyone's getting all this. They all knew that this is bullshit. That it wasn't any kind of Munchausen, any kind of, what do they call it now? Factious, whatever. They always try to make it sound nicer. The more evil the disorder is, the nicer they like to make it fucking sound. Right? Over time, for some reason. All right. So that's the deal. That's two things. In my opinion, it exonerates that alone, the timeline alone, the way it went down, exonerates Dee Dee completely from any kind of medical abuse. Yeah, she was telling her to exaggerate things with her or just shut up and let me do the talking, but not putting her through something. No. She was trying to figure out what's wrong with her baby, man. And then later they found out what it was. And that should have put that whole thing to rest. But no. They decided to capitalize on it. You guys have to understand, the state went along with this. Nick's defense attorney went along with it. They all went along with this. And they're all attorneys, and none of them are stupid. And they all know what that timeline means. And they still went with this. Yet more circumstantial evidence that she cut a deal with the devil. And they're all fucking Luciferians or adjacent, or this would have never worked out. And I'll see you in the next video.